Good morning. I would like to call to order the open meeting for Thursday, July 24th, 2025. We apologize for the delay and appreciate everyone's patience. I will now ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, June 17th, 2025, and each has informed me there's no need to discuss the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, July 17, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 9.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 through 7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the notices of proceeding associated with agenda items 8 and 9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that brings us to agenda item 10, our first discussion item of today. This is the net metering scoping memo from docket 5 EI 157, which is the investigation of parallel generation purchase rates. So I'll just start our discussion with some background on this issue and the investigation. So this investigation was born out of the 2023 rate case cycle when MG&E and WP&L proposed as part of their 24-25 test year rate case filings significant modifications to their net metering tariffs. These modification requests garnered substantial interest and feedback from participating parties, as well as through the many comments submitted by members of the public. It was evident from those records in both cases that any change to net metering would garner significant interest and was likely highly controversial. In both cases, several parties argued that the timing was not right to overhaul existing net metering programs, and alternatively, called on the Commission to direct further investigation to evaluate appropriate tariff structures for net metering customers. At a high level, investigations play a valuable role because they provide an opportunity to explore topics in greater depth than what is generally afforded in a rate case proceeding or in a tariff filing. And here, the Commission agreed that an investigation of this topic was warranted. In the final decisions for both MG&E and WP&L, the Commission denied the net metering changes sought and instead outlined a set of net metering related topics that could be included in an investigation. While a cost-benefit analysis and/or a value of solar study were referenced, neither of the two final decisions prescribed exactly what topics should be investigated. As such, a notice of investigation was issued on March 14th, 2024, and Commission staff embarked on a scoping process to help establish the topics that could be more thoroughly analyzed as part of this investigation. The scope of the investigation, is what we are discussing and deciding today. Our many fans who intently tune into our weekly meetings will recall that this is, in fact, the second time this investigation scoping process is before the Commission. We first considered the net metering scoping process in our September 26th, 2024 open meeting. Prior to that, Commission staff requested technical assistance from the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, Berkeley Labs, specifically seeking the preparation of a value of solar literature review to facilitate a better understanding of the value of solar and the methods included in studies considered in other states. Because the literature review was not complete by the time of the September 26th open meeting, we deferred our decision on the preparation of a Wisconsin-specific value of solar study, or VOS, and instructed Commission staff to solicit and review stakeholder comments on the Berkeley Lab literature review. Commission staff received the VOS literature review from Berkeley Labs on January 13th, 2025, and distributed it to the parties for informational purposes on February 25th, 2025. Therefore, the Commission is taking up the scoping process for a second time because the literature review is now complete, and we need to decide what we want to do on that topic. And regardless of whether VOS is included or not, we need to firmly establish the scope of this investigation going forward. This discussion is not the time for discovery, nor is it the time to state our positions on net metering and debate that on the merits. Rather, we need to stick to merely providing direction on the scope and next steps of this investigation. So with that little history lesson out of the way, I will walk through my positions on the two decision items before us and then turn it over to my colleagues for their positions. So first, I'm just going to preface this by saying that my high-level vision for this investigation, what it is and what it always has been. So I'm interested in establishing an investigation with a carefully crafted scope. It's important for this investigation to continue to facilitate and provide opportunities for robust engagement on the issues, especially given what we know are very strong feelings about the topic. I'm optimistic that my in my expectation that the outcomes of this investigation will be viable and will provide us, and will be in alignment with our regulatory framework that we operate within. And then while the VOS exercise and the lit review was an important one, we did order this investigation back in 2023. So we need to be clear and streamlined in our direction and scope today so that we can really get moving on this and start to make some progress as soon as possible within this investigation. So our first decision item asks whether we should direct the preparation of a Wisconsin-specific value of solar study as part of the investigation. And our second decision item asks about which non-value of solar study items should be included in the investigation scope. So on the value of solar study question, echoing my earlier comments about exploring challenging topics in greater depth, quantifying the value of solar is a vast undertaking, one that is novel to this commission, highly technical in nature, and necessitates significant resources. In getting us to this point, commission staff have worked diligently to gather information about value of solar and to analyze the literature review, the comments provided, and various value of solar study options. I want to thank and applaud our team's efforts to leverage available external resources and expertise of Berkeley Labs in the hopes of bringing greater clarity to this topic. Unfortunately, the information gathered to date on the value of solar demonstrates that clarity on this topic is highly elusive. Due to the technical and novel nature, as well as the many comments reflecting various viewpoints with no clear consensus on this issue, I think this investigation needs to proceed without a Wisconsin-specific value of solar study. The time and resources necessary to complete the study would be substantial, and based on the feedback we received, coupled with the report, I worry that directing the preparation of a Wisconsin VOS will bog down the investigation and send staff and parties on a fool's errand, thus impeding the potential for actionable outcomes through this investigation. In short, the potential juice is not worth the very significant and complicated squeeze it would require. Reflecting back on the Commission's initial decisions coming out of the 2023 rate cases to investigate net metering, while it's important to note the Commission approved the inclusion of VOS as a potential topic for further evaluation, our actions then did not require VOS to be part of the final outcome of this investigation. Speaking as the one member of this commission who took part in those decisions, I'm confident that the efforts undertaken thus far align closely with the intent of our decisions then and comply with the commission's directives. And I feel strongly that that also extends to my positions on our two decision items today. Now is the time to end the VOS portion of the investigation and to focus on these other elements. Therefore, for the first decision item, again, I'm at alternative 2, which is do not direct the preparation of a Wisconsin-specific value of solar study at this time. We can turn it over to Commissioner Nieto and Commissioner Hawkins on this item, and then we'll undertake our second one after we hear from them. Commissioner Nieto.
Thanks. I would, just as an initial matter, thank all of the participants for the work that was put into the comments in this latest iteration of the process that we're working on here in this generic docket, and for the prior comments on the value of solar and cost-benefit analyses. These have all been really helpful. This is a generic investigation. We have a lot of options and paths we can take. And some of these options and paths, I think, to some of what Chair Strand was just discussing, require differing levels of staff workload and capacity as well. So there are some considerations there. In terms of the overall scope and process, I agree this is at the same time very important to get right and important to advance and move forward. Under the first decision point, I was at Alt 2, do not direct preparation of a Wisconsin-specific value of solar study at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hawkins.
Thanks, and thank you, Chair Strand, for the history lesson. As the one that was not here at all, that I do benefit from the history lesson quite a bit, and really benefited from digging through the expansive record that's been developed in this investigation, and want to thank all the parties that provided responses to the literature review. It made it really comprehensive, all the different sides of this conversation, and so always number one for me is just considering the bigger picture of how the decisions that this investigation eventually leads to fits with all of the other work of the commission, the bigger grid as a whole, and how all the signals sort of fit together. And so I think we have a really good picture of all of those pieces, different value streams, and how they need to be analyzed. And so the investigation, I think, echoing what Chair Strand said, has been sort of following down that path in an effective way. And from everything I was able to see, I'm in agreement with my two colleagues that we don't need to prepare a Wisconsin-specific boss at this time. And I think we still have a lot of other worthy components of this investigation that will be useful to us. So I'm in the same place at Alt 2 on Decision 1.
Thank you both. Moving on to our second decision item, which covers non-value of solar subjects, value of solar study subjects for investigation. So this is really our opportunity to set the scope of the investigation going forward. So there are other important elements of net metering that can be explored as part of our deeper dive into the subject. And they are elements that, in my opinion, are more likely to produce useful information that could help inform the development of a framework for reviewing future net metering filings. Based on information gathered and comments received on the non-VOS subjects, which are page 32 and 33 of our commission memo, did present 4 items for possible inclusion into the scope of the investigation. I appreciate the comments and opinions shared by various parties and utilities engaged in the investigatory process thus far. This feedback made it clear that some parties feel strongly that the commission should include these 4 topics in its investigation scope. While I largely support the inclusion of the underlying topics contained in these 4 items, I did find the descriptions to be duplicative and or lacking clarity and kind of that streamlined nature that we're seeking in order to set this investigation up for success. So I do just have a few minor changes that I'm going to propose to better articulate the scope of this in the hopes that it will help streamline the next steps. Because again, I think we need to be clear, direct, and not get in the weeds in the scope. At this point in the process, I think it's important for us to evaluate where we are with net metering currently. I think it's important for us to evaluate where we could go and how to get there through the review of various options, alternatives, and rate designs. And I think we need to evaluate the impacts of where we are right now, and then if changes were to be made, where we could go and how that would impact certain constituencies. So as it relates to the first item proposed in the memo on page 32, I do feel that we don't have all the information that we need to inform future utility filings and commission decisions on net metering. So I do think it's important for us, kind of as a very necessary first step, to establish a clear universe of solar and DER adoption in Wisconsin as it relates to net metering policy, so that we as a commission can wrap our heads around the scale of this issue and whether or not that scale necessitates significant changes, minor tweaks, no change to current net metering programs, et cetera. I do think that the language in the memo for item 1 is good here. It calls for a review and analysis of solar adoption rates, including number of customers, percentage of customers, annual and projected growth rate, and how solar adoption rates impact the viability and efficiency of traditional net metering. So again, I would just make a minor modification to add customer demographics and solar capacity to the list of things to be reviewed and analyzed, so that we, if possible, can learn more about the actual customers who are installing and hosting these DPV solar opportunities, and the capacity that those resources provide. Again, I think that adding those 2 things in this item as a whole will help bolster our understanding of kind of the extent of this issue. So with this change, my modified item 1, just so everyone's clear, would read: a review and analysis of solar/DER adoption rates and capacity of DPV solar installations, including the number of customers, the percentage of customers, participating customer demographics to the extent practicable, the annual and projected growth rate, and how solar adoption rates impact the viability and efficiency of traditional net metering. Moving on to item 2 in the memo, this calls for an analysis of various net metering rate designs, including how much energy is being produced, cost of utility, how these rate designs impact progress towards clean energy goals, comparison to utility-owned solar, effect on non-participating customers, and maintaining or improving energy equity and the benefits of distributed generation to low-income and marginalized customers. Some of the elements listed here in item 2 are then again included in items 3 and 4 for consideration in our memo. So to clean this up, I propose modifying item 2 to focus more on the evaluation of various net metering options, but also to preserve our flexibility on what and how the evaluation and analysis are undertaken. So not being overly prescriptive, but also being clear about what this second item, scope item, entails. So my modified topic 2, or item 2, would read as follows: an evaluation of various net metering rate designs, including a comparison to utility-owned solar. Again, broad, not overly prescriptive, flexible. And then I would combine items 3 and 4 into a single item 3 and would modify that directive to be an evaluation of the effects/impacts various net metering rate designs may have on DPV solar/DER adoption rates, non-participating customers, low-income and marginalized customers, and renewable energy goals. So I think that that helps kind of combine the various things that we want to analyze the impacts of into one more straightforward item. So it is my hope and expectation that these modified scope items will facilitate a robust evaluation of the various net metering design approaches and how these various approaches may impact customers with some flexibility and the recognition that investigations can be fluid and, if necessary, various other aspects of net metering not included in the scope approved today could be investigated under this docket at a later time. Nothing in our decisions today precludes that. And then also with the expectation that, again, we start to make some significant progress here, given that we're through the VOS issue and onto the actual scope. So given my modifications here, I'm at alternative 3 for decision point 2. And then in closing, I'll just say that investigations are helpful tools for gathering information, and they also then serve as vehicles to develop viable outcomes to better address investigated topics in future proceedings. So it is my goal that what comes out of this specific investigation is used and useful, and that establishing the scope that I outlined will ensure that we undertake a net metering investigation that is strategic, that continues to facilitate robust engagement on these issues, and that aligns with our regulatory authority that exists today. So I will now turn this over to Commissioner Nieto and then Commissioner Hawkins for their positions on decision item 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Strand. To confirm what you're proposing with your modifications here, under item 2, you would suggest we look at rate designs and comparison to utility-owned. And then under 3, it would be a global impact on participation on various customer classes and clean energy goals.
It would be an evaluation of the effects and impacts of those various designs to be evaluated under item 2. So the designs themselves and the options there would be evaluated under 2. And then in under 3, the effects and impacts of those various options would be on DPV solar and DER adoption rates, non-participating customers, low-income and marginalized customers, and renewable energy goals. So whatever is developed under 2 we would also need to make sure that the impacts of those potential options, that the impacts of those things on these 5 constituencies, for lack of a better word, are also analyzed. We want to know, okay, quickly, number 1, what the scope is of this issue in the state of Wisconsin right now. Number 2, if changes were to be made, what are various changes or options for the net metering programs and rate design? How does that compare to utility-owned solar? And then number 3, if any of those changes were to be considered, what impacts do those changes have on these various entities? So adoption rates, non-participating customers, low-income and marginalized customers, and then renewable energy goals as a whole, be that utility or something else.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That does, and that helps.
Okay.
And that, so under item 1, I wanted to take up topic 1 as well. I do think adoption levels, current and forecasted impacts are clearly, from the comments we received all around from commenters, germane to this discussion. And I do like your addition regarding capacity. So with you on topic 1, under topic 2, I like the approach and the path that you're carving out here. One thing that I was particularly interested under item 2 would be considering the uniform statewide approach, consideration of the clear definitions and principles for net metering, and net energy billing, similar to the avoided cost approach used earlier in the PG tariffs, and including that review of those, the list of potential cost components. And I thought something else we could draw upon would be our experience with the focus on energy cost effectiveness tests as well, to the point of some comments. And I think I'm understanding from what you're saying that your number 2 is intended to be sufficiently open for all of those things to be considered and explored and
Correct.
set that general direction, and it wouldn't preclude any of those, right?
Yep, I want it to be flexible, but I don't want it to be overly prescriptive, because I think it's possible that we could miss something or tie our hands, or be overly prescriptive on studying something that actually is not even a viable option, similar to the boss situation.
Yeah.
So, yes, what you are interested in seeing evaluated under item 2 would could absolutely be evaluated under my broad, flexible language proposed for item 2.
Okay, that helps a lot, and that's what I was thinking along similar lines to what you're saying about having sufficient flexibility. I think some commenters, for example, were asking us to explore performance-based rates, and I agree that that's important, and I think it's an important dot to connect, but, and something we want to be flexible enough to not lock ourselves out of exploring something that could help, but that's a separate generic investigation that is going on. And I do think there are opportunities that connect, and we just want to make sure that we're not holding our state or our utilities back from leveraging future opportunities that might be able to build upon distributed PV or battery adoption, or opportunities for some of the other types of programs that were raised in this docket, like virtual power plant type programs and PBR structures that could support those. I think those are all important dots in what Commissioner Hawkins was talking about, the bigger picture as we move forward. And I think what Chair Strand, your path allows us to do with that flexibility. With all that, I'll join you on your proposal here for these non-VOS subjects, which would put me at an Alt 3. Thanks.
Okay, and you're good with the impacts group, the group that we included in the impacts
Yeah.
to be studied under 3?
Yep, and I
Okay.
agree with how that captures everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
Thank you, and thank you for the reiteration of those suggestions. For the first component, I also support getting additional information on the adoption rates and agree with the modifications so far. I think I have an additional one as well. Appreciate the addition of DER beyond just solar, because there is a really important tie there for how the value of solar in net metering is impacted by other types of DER. So I think that's a critical piece, and we need to be inclusive there. I would also add just load side programs in general, something big, because there's also a connection to load management programs, time of use, EV charging, those sorts of things. The current cost of service rates for the larger parallel generation tariffs are specifically tied to some of those as well. If you're on a peak pricing, that changes your value. So I think the adoption of all of those things are interrelated. And so I just want to make sure we have clear understanding of, whether our customers are participating in other load side programs in addition to installing DERs and or solar or what have you. So just a slight modification there to track that in the whole analysis of the adoption. So that was my number 1, and I am good on 2 and 3. My mic is really echoey today, so I apologize. I'll move way back here. On 3, echoing what I was just saying on the adoption rates, part of the impacts, and I'm not sure if this was in your list or not, Chair Strand, but you mentioned impacts on adoption rates, and I want to make sure that that's inclusive of impacts on adoption rates of DERs and participation in other load side programs. So how does the rate structure impact whether you're participating in other programs, and just tying it into all the many load side options that a customer might be faced with from their utility, and so just making sure it's all encompassing of that. So I wanted to add that in the impacts list if it wasn't already. And I wanted to clarify that your impacts list did not include, what was in the memo had cost to the utility as well as impacts on non-participating customers. I thought those were repetitive, so I wanted to make sure. I know you're usually a hawk for the duplicative things, so I wanted to make sure that wasn't in there twice.
No, so let's make sure that we're all on the same page of what you're proposing for the change to 1, because obviously what you're proposing, you're also asking for that aspect of it to be carried through to 3, and then I'll tell you what 3 says again. So I think in 1, correct me if I'm wrong, your modification to the modification would mean that item 1 would read, a review and analysis of solar/DER adoption rates and capacity of DPV solar installations, comma, other load side programs and participation rates?
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna write it down just so we don't mess it up. Other load side programs. Can I say and their participation rates?
Yep.
Okay. Including the number of customers, percentage of customers, participating demographics, annual projected growth rate, because all of those things
Yep.
apply back. Yes,
Apply to both.
okay. So that, and then because of that, 3 would read, an evaluation of the effects or impacts various net metering rate designs may have on DPV solar/DER adoption rates, other load side program offerings, or other load side, what did we say up here? Other load side programs. And then for your clarity, non-participating customers, low-income and marginalized customers, and renewable energy goals.
Good.
Okay. Did you get,
Yep.
are you okay with Commissioner Hawkins' proposed additions?
I am.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think that we are in agreement on the modifications and then with what the scope would be based on those going forward. So we should be ready. You have everything you need? Okay, great. I think we're ready for a vote then on this. Thank you.
All right. In docket 5 EI 157, I move that we advance the generic investigation pursuant to our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, our second decision item for today is number 11, docket 9820 CE 100, which is the petition for a limited reopening and modification to the final decision in the Vista Sands Solar CPCN. It's my understanding that one of my colleagues wants to make a few remarks on this one, and then we'll walk us through the alternatives here. So I will turn it over, I think it's Commissioner Nieto for this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Some contextual remarks here. On June 26, Vista Sands Solar LLC filed a petition for limited reopening and modification of our final decision authorizing the construction of the Vista Sands Solar project. Vista Sands Solar is asking us to reopen the docket to consider approximately 374.6 acres of new land to the project area. Vista Sands states its request to add the new land to the project area addresses concerns raised by the DNR and the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, WWF, who both requested that the commission prohibit construction in certain areas to protect greater prairie chicken, leks, and habitat near the Buena Vista Wildlife Area. Vista Sands states that the addition of the new land will provide flexibility to site solar arrays farther from the areas of concern for DNR and WWF, and that WWF, along with Renew and Clean Wisconsin, support its filing. It was great to read that the parties had reached a mutual agreement, and this was a project in which the developer made significant commitments to be a strong partner in the community and to work collaboratively with greater prairie chicken stakeholders. We certainly appreciated that in our discussion of this underlying docket and took note of that in our approval and asked the developer to continue its collaborative work, and ultimately here we are with a notification that a mutual agreement has been reached. I'm glad the parties were able to work this out, and I would grant the applicant's request to reopen the docket with one minor addition it appears we need to ensure here. In reviewing the maps of the project area and the new land, Vista Sand's request may impact one or more non-participating properties in a significantly different manner than was originally proposed in this docket. This isn't unexpected or unusual. However, it appears we might not have in the petition documentation of communications with all potentially affected landowners regarding the proposed change. The information contained in the petition seems to indicate Vista Sand Solar plans to reach out to non-participating landowners in the future, but it is not clear to me what communications have taken place and who in the area is aware of the requested change in terms of non-participating landowners. So I would simply direct staff to add non-participating landowners to the service list when issuing the order and request for comment in order to ensure outreach is done, since I was unable to confirm that based on the filing, unless any of my colleagues would point out something different that I missed here. So that is bringing me to a modified Alt-1, Sub-Alt-A, granting the request, issuing the order to reopen, soliciting comments, and adding non-participating landowners to the service list. And then regarding the supplemental EIS, I'm at Alt-1 in line with the WEPA coordinator's analysis. Thanks.
Thank you. I am fine with your inclusion for the first item and agree with you on Alt-1 for the second item. So, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm in agreement with my colleagues. In reviewing the maps, there was definitely some significant changes for a couple of properties and think that's appropriate. So I'm with you on Alt-1, the modified Sub-Alt-A, and Alt-1 for decision 2.
Great. Thanks to you both. And are we ready for a motion?
I have what I need.
Okay. Yep.
In docket 9820 CE 100, I move we grant the applicant's request to reopen the docket and direct the issuance of an order to reopen and request for comment pursuant to our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that does conclude our business for today. Again, thank you for your patience this morning. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August 7th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we stand adjourned until Thursday, August 7, 2025 at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.